Welcome to the Success with Jewelry podcast, where we invite you inside our conversations about business success and marketing for jewelry designers and entrepreneurs.
We're Laryssa and Liz, jewelry marketing experts with a combined 16 years of experience in jewelry marketing and proven track records in helping jewelry brands meet their goals. When you listen to or watch this podcast, you get an intimate and exclusive peek behind the curtain of all the things you wish you could know about earning success in this industry.
Welcome to episode 112 and to 2025. This week, we're switching things up and inviting you behind the scenes for a brainstorm and a strategy session. We're planning for a more organized, intentional year of content, and you're coming along for the ride. In our bonus segment, we'll share some of our biggest, boldest ideas for the podcast and talk through whether they make sense and if there's something you, our listeners, would love. Hey, Laryssa, let's dive in.
Happy almost 2025. We're recording it just at the end of the year.
December 30th.
Yes. It's exciting.
It is exciting. And we did this, and I didn't get your approval for this, but I did a countdown on our Instagram of the top 5 posts from 2024. And that was pretty fun and pretty eye-opening.
I've actually been loving what you've been doing with the content. I had to pull the 5 episodes because we were asked what our top episodes were by JCK.
A big deal, a big win.
No big deal. So we had the information already and Liz just took it and ran with it.
I always like this time of year when everybody's counting down or doing a year in review. I'm always like, oh man, I should do that. And this year I was like, I have it right here. I'm going to do it.
Totally. Meanwhile, I've just disappeared from social media for the past week and a half.
That's actually one of my goals is to be on social media less. But for now, I'm like, I'm not addicted, but maybe I am. I don't know. I need to stop scrolling. So I would be on it whether we were doing this or not. So at least it felt productive.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. I really like the countdown. I think it's great.
Oh, good. Good. I posted our top one today, but I think one of the biggest things we took away from it is that you guys liked our guests. You liked that we had guests on, and you liked the interviews.
And so we're going to do more or continue to do that in 2025.
Right. We were kind of thinking about who we want to interview. And so if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear from you. I think something else that worked well is I feel like because we're kind of sometimes last minute in recording, we're able to be nimble with the content too. So it feels really very in the moment or real time. So we're talking about kind of what is happening now. And as much as we want to get ahead of it and plan, I think it's still good for listeners to hear kind of what's happening now versus we recorded this 3 months ago.
Yeah. And I think it's also allowed us to be more relaxed too. I think when we started it, and we've talked about this before, we were kind of buttoned up and we had our outline and whatever. And now it's a little more free form.
Yeah, which is fun because I feel like you and I always have things to say, or I think what I love about recording the podcast is I have all of these ideas from the week or things I've been thinking, and I have no one to tell them to because just no one around me wants to hear about marketing, and so it's nice to kind of have a place to put all of it.
It just made me think over the holidays, no one in my family or whatever that is close to me does marketing. And I'm like, dang, I don't have to talk about marketing. This is weird.
But you're thinking about it, right?
I'm still thinking about it, but I don't have anyone to talk to about it.
I've been thinking about it a lot. I keep DMing myself because I have a private account with Stay Gold where I can share stuff, but I didn't want to share stuff over the holidays. I know we're still in the holidays, but it feels we're kind of back a little bit. Anyway, I sent myself all these posts that I was going to share. And this morning I went on and I shared all of these ideas and thoughts and things I saw. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't need to overwhelm people. I just, I was thinking.
I've got to hold back a little bit.
I know. And then I just I saw at the store the other day a Dove soap and crumble cookies collaboration. And
wow.
Show that too. I don't know. But I was like, what a strange collaboration.
Totally. How does
Um,
that even fit?
I don't know how that fits. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, well, Crumble has like a pretty devoted following because they essentially, if you're not familiar with Crumble cookies, like they switch up their flavors every week. So if you order, like you only have a week or I don't know how much time, I think every week to order the special flavors. So there's like some urgency there, but they have like this kind of these fans of crumble cookies. And so maybe Dev's trying to like lean into a niche or like trying to capture this like fan base. And
That's cool. I like that crossover. Not unexpected.
just unexpected. I was like, oh, this is strange. I took a picture of the display and I was like, I don't know who I'm going to show this to.
I'm usually just mumbling to myself, who is this for? It's like what I say all the time. Like looking at some piece of marketing, I'm just like, who is this for?
Well, so like what's interesting about that is like I was so intrigued by the display. It stood out. It was like in the middle of the aisle and I had still no interest in walking over and smelling it or looking at the product. Like it just didn't intrigue me to the point of like, oh, I wonder what this smells like.
Mhm.
Like what types of product they're doing or like what flavors or anything like that. I was just like, oh, that's weird. Took a
Just
picture.
your marketing brain.
Yeah, totally. Um, but so listener feedback, and I shared this on the Instagram recently, and this is a kind of an idea that Laryssa and I were just kind of talking about. And I wonder if anybody has an opinion. And we'd love to hear it. But one of the feedbacks we did get was our sound. And I think we fixed that because my mic was lower than Laryssa's, and I didn't realize that was a thing. And we figured it out recently. So the sound should be more even. But Laryssa mentioned, like, well, maybe we could like up our game and like do intro music and like kind of think about it more seriously. And I wonder if that would impact everyone. Like, would you?
Yeah. And there's more professional tools than Zoom that I have used, but it's more time. And full disclosure, like this is not our bread and butter. And so Liz and I are trying to figure out like a cost benefit analysis for the podcast.
Right. Because right now it's really something we just like doing. And that's great. And it's cool because I feel like this year we've really started to get traction and or at the very least like heard from more people that they were listeners. So we know now that we're not speaking into the void.
Yeah.
But where do we want to go with it? And that's kind of what we're thinking about.
Yeah. And we're thinking about you and how to make it better, but got to be patient.
Yes, it is a slow moving wheel. But in terms of goals, and we haven't like we're talking about this on air. Like we had a short discussion before we hopped on, but this is like a meeting that you are listening to. But goals for 2025, key themes we want to focus on with the podcast or like opportunities for like deeper dives or anything like that. Do you have any goals for the podcast?
Well, I think kind of what we talked about is like, what do we ultimately want out of it? And I don't think there's a goal around that yet because we're exploring and figuring it out. And I know we've been doing this now for like 2 years or something like that, but it's still 2 years seems like a long time, but it's kind of a baby time for a podcast. Like it's still evolving. We're trying to like see who our audience is. And so what we want out of it, we're exploring it still, I think.
Yeah, and like it's the clearer you get on your goals, like the more focused you become. And I think that something we do know is we want to be more focused in what we're doing and have, like a shared vision. I think that this past year, I like, we would just come up with ideas and just either like run with it or not. And it just was we were, as much as we talk about planning and how you should plan out, we weren't super planned with what we were doing. We had
Yeah.
like general ideas, but it was kind of like, oh, here's an idea. Okay, let's do that. And I think that just getting more focused in terms of like the content we want to put out and getting ahead of it and like having like a clearer vision would be helpful.
Yeah. And I think especially in 2024, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think this is true. We were both very burned out, and it was kind of a accomplishment just to keep showing up and putting the podcast out every week.
Yes. And that I agree. Like that's so true. I think we didn't record at all in December because
Except for this one.
yeah, this one on December 30th. I think this is our first podcast that we're recording in a month because we were able to get ahead of it. And I think the idea was to stay ahead of it so that we had content in case I was traveling or Laryssa was traveling or we had a busy work week and we didn't have time to record and things like that. But we just kind of used it all up because I was so burnt out in December that I just could not fit another thing in.
Same. Yeah. And so to Liz's point about getting more ahead of things, I think that will free us up for more time and mental space to like be strategic and have a vision together rather than just being like, okay, we got this done. Great.
I know. I think that, I mean, this is a passion project, but it's certainly something that I think helps expose us to new designers and gives us an opportunity to share some more of our thoughts, and people to have a better understanding of like our the way we think about marketing and like makes people more comfortable to like approach us to work with us if they want to and things like that. So there's like a lot of positives with this for our businesses, even though it is a passion project, but it is hard to prioritize things like this.
Absolutely. I mean, we have so much on our plates, but it's fun at the end of the day. And I think that motivates us too.
Yeah, once we're on, it's great. And
Yeah.
we always feel good after we do it. And I love promoting it. And I think this year, actually, that's a big thing that I think we figured out this year was how to show up on Instagram, which was something that we were like really unsure about beforehand. Like I was kind of just posting like clips randomly or just the, cover photo of like me and Laryssa and like what episode it was. So I think that the Instagram has gotten a lot more fun to do. And it's been a really fun way to connect with listeners, and kind of find out who's out there and what they're gaining from the podcast.
Yeah, we should revisit our Instagram stats at some point too, because I know that you've improved it so much.
Yeah, I did. Where's my report? My last report was looking pretty good. I think I did November, but I don't think, well, December's not quite over yet, so I haven't done December. But yeah, it is looking pretty good. I think that we can push for more engagement. So that's going to be a goal. That's always a goal, right? Because I'll post question boxes and stuff and really get no response. But we have been getting more comments on posts, which is also good. So yeah, that's been really fun.
Yeah, for sure. So if you follow us, make sure you engage with us because we need that encouragement.
You need the encouragement. In terms of like content structure though, or like how we structure the episodes, I think that I think we kind of figured it out and hit a stride. I know a lot of the feedback I get is that people like that it's so short and actionable. So I don't think that's something that we necessarily need to change. I think just making sure we're covering the right topics or have more ideas for topics because sometimes we kind of hit this wall of like, oh, we've talked about everything. What should we talk about now?
I mean, there is, well, I mean, I know from having my podcast forever too, it can be really hard to keep things fresh.
Totally. And I think that it's interesting that out of the top 5 episodes, 3 of them were guests and interviews. And then the 2 that you liked that were just Laryssa and I were one was about holiday planning, which is great. We love talking about planning. And the other one was about Instagram. So it sounds like people want to hear more about Instagram.
Yeah.
So
Those
that
episodes always perform really well when I do them too. Like Instagram is like a hot topic. What was funny though was you guys liked holiday planning part one, but holiday planning part two did not do very well.
why that is. I think that we put those episodes out too late. I think next year we need
Yeah,
to
probably.
part 2 was like people were planned out already. I don't know. Or you got enough out of part 1. I don't know.
Yeah. Good for you. But we were just talking before, like Liz and I need to sit down and do a brain dump everything we could possibly talk about this year so that we're not just scrambling to like find ideas. But of course, there's like more timely stuff that comes up and we can fit that in too.
Yeah, we can move stuff around. That's the joy of planning, right? You like you know what you're doing, and then if something pops up, you can fit it in because you're ahead of schedule. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, I lost my train of thought.
One thing I just thought of, maybe we could think in terms of episode structure, like one thing you and I are thinking about this week in like marketing or jewelry land or
Oh,
something.
that's a good idea. I'm thinking about that crumble lab with Dove and how I think that we're going to be seeing like a lot of unexpected brand collaborations this year.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is that I think that like an episode that I really like that we put out recently was all about an elevator pitch, and that's like such a small topic, and so I think that I like the idea of being more niche with our conversations and like getting more specific. Like we were talking about doing an episode about headshots, which is like such a small thing, but I feel like we have so much to say. And I feel like when we first started the podcast, we like had broad topics. And I think like getting more specific and like leaning into like one portion of a thing could be cool.
Yeah, I like that idea. I just thought of a collab. I like went down a rabbit hole over Christmas because we were like watching something on TV about like the origin of chocolate chip cookies. And I was like, what? That can't be right. So I like Googled it. And it turns out that chocolate chip cookies exist because of a marketing collab back in like whatever, so long ago between like Nestle and some inn where this woman was like making chocolate chip cookies and they collabed, and Toll House chocolate chips is the result of a marketing collab.
Goodness.
It's like the OG marketing collab.
That's wild. Where would we be without chocolate chip cookies?
Yeah. And so I was like, wow, people have been doing collabs since like I don't even know how long ago that was. I'm gonna look it up really quick.
I want to do an episode about just local. I think we could do actually a whole series about local. That's what I've been on my soapbox about in the Stay Gold Collective. It's just like focusing on local. I think there's a lot of opportunity
I
there that
like that.
people are missing.
Well, that's what this whole thing was. So in the 1930s, there was an inn in Massachusetts called Toll House where like all the celebrities and famous people would go stay there, and this woman would make these chocolate chip cookies, and it got so famous that Nestle was like, hey, we need to do a collab. And so they printed her recipe like on a bag of like, I guess they were very primitive chocolate chips, just like broken up pieces of chocolate. And that's how chocolate chip cookies became so famous and iconic, and Nestle became like the ultimate brand for like chocolate chips.
That's wild. I would guess that it's still her recipe on the bag.
I think so, yeah.
Hmm, interesting.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, marketing rabbit hole I went down.
See, you managed to fit marketing into your holiday season.
Always. I mean, tis
Um,
the season. Christmas basically is a marketing holiday.
I know. Oh gosh, I could go on a tangent about my kid had a Paw Patrol Christmas. Like, I mean, essentially, like he asked for Paw Patrol toys, and that's what he got. And just wow, I've been talking about Paw Patrol a lot, and now we have a Paw Patrol toothbrush, and
Oh,
you
wow.
know,
I love a theme.
yeah, all the things. So I don't
Hmm.
know. That doesn't have anything to do with marketing, but it kind of does because I don't know where he heard about Paw Patrol. Maybe school, maybe on a commercial, but it wasn't from me showing it to him.
Word of mouth. Who knows?
Who knows? Anyway, so the last thing we'll talk about before we move on to insiders, but is like collaborations and guest collaborations, continuing on this theme, but our dream guests for the year, and we have a couple of episodes lined up for January, which we've been talking about and we're excited about, but just thinking about like, actually, Actually, I was thinking about a dream guest that we should reach out to, and I think Stephanie Gottlieb.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I
I
bet she
was going to ask you
would.
because we need to put it in the universe. We need to say it. We need to manifest it.
Well, I saw that she was because JCK has a podcast and they posted their top episodes of the year, and one was with her. And I was like, oh, well, if she went on that podcast, maybe she'd come on our podcast. We might as well
Yes.
reach out.
Yeah, I think we should get Danielle from Gem Gossip too.
That would be a good one. That would also be a good one. Um, Yeah, I think that okay, this is a crazy idea too. And this is what we kind of need to stop do. I need to stop doing is like just coming up with crazy ideas and just running with it, like putting it into the strategy. But I have a neighbor who is a marketer for big consumer brands, and I thought it would be really fun to have her on the podcast to talk
Yeah,
about like big corporate companies are thinking in terms of marketing.
sure. I think any and all perspectives are good. I love
I
it.
think so too. I think that I want to lean more into the jewelry world, but also lean out of the jewelry world. I want to do both things, because I
Mhm.
feel like there are some other great jewelry podcasts out there, but like hearing from designers, like we're going to have an episode coming up where we're talking about Tucson and tips for shopping at Tucson or going to Tucson for the first time. Tucson being the Tucson Gem Show. And I think like I love the idea of talking to designers and like leaning into the jewelry industry niche, but I also love the idea of looking at marketing and what other people are doing and kind of looking outside of the industry.
Yes, we get too caught up sometimes in our own little bubble, I think.
Definitely. So if we can balance both those things, I think that we'd have a really good mix of content.
Yeah. Stephanie, if you're listening, we want you to come on if you're on
Yeah.
Stephanie's team, but we're going to reach out to her too.
Yeah. Yeah. Expect an email in the new year. All right. What do you want to hear this year? Let us know. Visit successwithjewelry.com. And if you love the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a message or leave us a review. Thanks for being a part of our community.